This is the fourth Lunch and Learn webinar that we have conducted, and we're very, very interested in your comments as to whether or not you are enjoying them and hopefully learning from them, and are you wanting more? And if so, what subject might you want us to conduct a webinar on? So please use that chat room that James just discussed and kind of let us know what's on your mind as far as future webinars are concerned. Today, we're going to be discussing this new field called supply chain management. But I would kind of ask the question, is it really new? In 1995, I worked with a client where we developed a supply chain curriculum and taught it internally in their company for the next 5 years. So we know the term's been floating around for some 20 plus years. But still, from a career point of view, it is still relatively new. And I think from a company point of view, many folks are employed with smaller companies or medium-sized companies, and they still think supply chain means purchasing. Today, we're going to introduce the fact that it doesn't mean just purchasing, and the very popular term that APEX uses is end-to-end supply chain management. So as James mentioned, this Friday, February 19th, we will be conducting a full-day workshop on the subject of supply chain management. In just a few slides, we will actually show you the main agenda for that workshop. In case you don't know me, again, my name is Jerry Kiltie, the current Vice President of Education for the chapter. And as you kind of glance at my resume, quickly bulleted it here, I've been very active in APEX over the last 22 years, as well as spending about 50 years accumulating some professional experience. I do have all of the APEX certifications, and yes, I am an APEX IDP Master Instructor, have been instructing the APEX content for most of the 20 years that you see here. We have used this slide in previous webinars. Basically, I like the slide in that it gives us a visibility that our careers are really journeys, and they have many, many whys in the road requiring choices to be made by each of us. I know I have had plenty of those whys during my 50-year career. So today, young and even older folks for that matter, the younger talent have a very new choice to make. And that is, how might they want to structure their career to take advantage of this field called supply chain management? I'm reading and hearing a lot, especially in the APEX information, about end-to-end supply chain management field and talent and opportunities. So there is some confusion I think APEX is causing. APEX is all about education and professional development. I have found the organization fantastic in that regard these last 20 plus years. But here's the confusion that I think they've caused. APEX has a certification called CPIM, Certification in Production and Inventory Management. This has been the flagship certification for many years, and there's hundreds. I think they just celebrated not long ago the 100,000th CPIM person, which is quite an achievement. So it's definitely, again, the CPIM is a worldwide recognition by APEX, and one of the exams, typically the first entry exam for the CPIM, is an exam titled Basics of Supply Chain Management, BSCM. And then in 2006, they introduced a second certification. Actually, it was the third, because we had the Certified in Integrated Resource Management, CIRM, certification for a while, unfortunately no longer available, but kind of replaced with the CSCP, Certified Supply Chain Professional. So the confusion is the Basics of Supply Chain Management course that we offer in preparation for the first entry level CPIM exam contain a lot of supply chain management basics as it's titled. I have taught that course thousands of times and can tell you the answer is not much supply chain management content in the course. A lot of great materials management in that course. Now, there is a lot of materials management in supply chain, so there is certainly we could say it's a okay title, but I do think it causes confusion and that people are looking for more supply chain management when they sign up for that course. Now, the end-to-end supply chain management that we're going to talk about today is much better represented in the CSCP program. This is a quick look at what the workshop this Friday is going to evolve around, and we'll expand on a few of these things. So first, we're going to talk about definitions in supply chain management. There are quite a few, and so we'll cover a good number of them. And we'll also talk about the 20-plus year evolution that I've seen and that is going on relative to the field of supply chain management. Two very, very important skill sets that employees need to feel comfortable with and understand is demand behavior and demand planning, along with relationship management. And we'll spend some time on both of those in the workshop. We'll also spend some time, both today and in the workshop, talking about some career opportunities that are starting to pop up in the field of supply chain management. And most important, for those people that are already certified with either APIC certification, this workshop will count towards 8 hours of CE credits. Okay, we're going to start with a pretty busy supply chain model. This is actually one of the figures that comes out one of the primary reference books that the CSCP exam committee uses. A book written by David Bowersox, a very good book on logistics. I like this model because it covers a lot that's going on in supply chain and the things that we can start to see relative to the term end-to-end. End-to-end simply means we start out on the customer side with the consumer customer. That's the person actually consuming the product that we're talking about. And it goes all the way to the supply side to where we might find the raw materials in the earth or in the waters of our oceans and or even on trees. So the definition of end-to-end supply chain is all of the companies working together from raw material sourcing to end consumer consumption. That could be many, many, many firms or just a handful, depending on all of the business environments that it takes to make your product and get it to the marketplace. So in this model, we kind of segment it between the distribution side, and we can have many different paths of how the product gets distributed. We have an integrated enterprise, which could include certainly manufacturing or operations, but it also includes logistics and sourcing that gets product to the marketplace on the logistics side and certainly gets supply from the sourcing side. And then you have a complete supplier network that you deal with to get all of the appropriate materials. So if you look at the top here, a lot about supply chain today is having the know-how of working the relationship side of working with all of these firms collaboratively to get the job done. That is completely the opposite of the culture I grew up in the early days. The culture I grew up in, and maybe many of you, was that every company was sort of its own standalone competitor. And we tended to treat all of our suppliers and customers as the other guys, and we really didn't want to partner with them. We wanted to beat them down on price if they were our suppliers and jack them up on price if they were our customers. This is a whole different culture today in the way supply chain wishes to work with all of the participating members of your supply chain or trading partners. So we have to now have a better way of managing that information, sharing the development of the product or service, having financial and knowledge flows. This is another interesting major culture change, again, from the old days, and that is sharing data, maybe what we used to think of as proprietary data with our suppliers and our customers. And it also gets into understanding the total capacity of the supply chain, not just one operation or one factory within the supply chain. It also gets into understanding what are the core competencies to be able to understand the entire supply chain, especially your consumer behavior patterns of buying. And it also helps us manage our capital and human resources. So we will elaborate more relative to both the definition of supply chain and many of these terms, as well as relationship management that is very, very critical to successful supply chains. Another model is that we see from the organization called Supply Chain Council of previous years. In 2014, APEX and the Supply Chain Council merged, a huge opportunity for both organizations. That allows APEX to now add Score P in their resume of or portfolio of education and opportunities. They call it a framework. So they actually have a very interesting program, again, titled Score P, that helps companies implement supply chain. When we look at this SCORE model, it sort of looks at the key things of sourcing, making, and delivering, and then the opportunity for return, possibly, in this case, goods coming back to you for refurbishment and upgrade and sustainability support, or goods going back through your supply side due to similar need and or possibly wrong items. So this is a framework that is structured around 6 very distinct management processes. As mentioned, plan, source, make, and deliver, and return. And then the last one is the ability to enable all of this to happen. Also, the framework provides a very standard language that the supply chain operations can use and create a blueprint of the key activities needed to manage effective and efficient supply chains. We're seeing a significant reduction, for example, in inventories on all the pipelines up and down the supply chain when efficient, successful programs are implemented. Now, one might ask, out here at the consumer level, what happens when that demand at the consumer level sees just a little tiny increase? What happens as that little tiny increase flows through all of the customers that might exist in the distribution network, and then flows through the companies that might be manufacturing the product, and then flows through the suppliers, both the first tier and maybe even the second tier and further tiers down, through all of their company needs. If you've been involved in demand management for a very long period of time, you will have heard of the term bullwhip effect. And that's exactly what happens in a little increase or even a big increase at the customer consumer demand. So during the workshop, we're going to participate in a lot of fun. It's a game called the beer game, if you've heard of it. It's been quite popularly done for many years, and it's an excellent activity that helps us understand this demand behavior. Another perspective about supply chain is companies go through stages in development and implementing, if you will, the supply chain framework. Those stages have been summarized in a couple of the textbooks, again, supporting the certification, as a company could either be multiple dysfunctional, or a semi-functional enterprise, or an integrated enterprise, or an extended enterprise. And I'm sure not too long in the future, there will be another stage that we don't even know about today as things keep changing on us rapidly, especially technologically. So just a few comments about these stages. If you're here in multiple dysfunctional, you're still struggling working together as a company. Your departments are somewhat disconnected from each other, and it's kind of when you hear people say, gee, the left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand's doing in this company. I don't know that there's very many of those companies left. Let's hope not. When we get to semi-functional enterprise stage, that means that we do recognize departmental functionality and them working together a little bit, but there's still some isolation going on. And again, hopefully that's the stage that most companies have left. And today, the stage that I think most companies are in is called integrated enterprise. This really supports the involvement of a enterprise resource planning, or ERP system. The main word that supports ERP is integration. So it's a tool that allows us to integrate functionally all that system database and work together very collectively inside a company. And companies are still, I think, pretty busy trying to get their ERP system optimized. And the next stage, and this is the future, I think, where we see new job opportunities and career choices, is to extend that now, not only within your company, but externally to all of your trading partners. And that's the supply chain management stage. So since 2006, and the supply chain certification has been available, I have found that it's just full of complexity. When we think of supply chain management and we extend it again beyond our own company, we start looking at, well, how do we add value? How do we add value relative to all the other companies that are participating? Are we doing something in our processes that are actually overlapping or conflicting, heaven forbid, with one of our trading partners? Are their objectives and our objectives the same for what we're trying to accomplish? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. What's the definition of customer service? What are some of the benefits that being working together in supply chain might allow us to do better? Supply chains have become global. Almost every company has some other country experience or exposure. And that brings in a whole bunch of new cultures that we may not have worked with in the past. What's the functionality of supply chain? Is it purchasing? It's only one piece of it, quite frankly. And one of the most driving variables that has changed supply chain and added, I think, both the opportunity for it and to the complexity of it is technology. Technology is changing quite rapidly. Partner relationship. We hear terms like customer relationship management and supplier relationship management. It's not just software either. We have integration and optimization opportunities. So, as I mentioned earlier, we see where ERP is an excellent system within a company to integrate the functions of that company, but we need to extend that now to all of the other companies that are our trading partners. Is that even feasible? Is that something we want to do? And if we do want to do it, how do we do it? How do we change our performance measurements so that everybody is kind of marching to the same tune? Of late, we're seeing a tremendous new requirement in our planning, and that's called sustainability, the ability to achieve the triple bottom line, make money economically, do the right thing for our land from a ecology, so to speak, point of view, and then thirdly, do the correct social thing. So sustainability is adding a whole new dimension of requirements for our trading partners. One of the things that I see in that world is that are we just around the corner from a whole nother new batch of regulations that companies might have to conform to, not too dissimilar to what was happening with the Sarbanes-Oxley legislation. And then inventory management. That's still one of the main keys in supply chain. It's having the right item at the right place at the right time at the right cost. That extends again up and down to all the trading partners. So that is a glimpse of some of the content that we'll be talking about, both in the workshop this Friday and as well in the CSCP program. So just a quick comment, there are now 17,000 professionals that have earned the APIC CSCP designation since it was introduced back in 2006. That is fantastic numbers for a reasonably new certification. And so for the rest of today's webinar, I want to kind of focus on what's going on relative to this certification and endorsement. They don't call the SCORE-P a certification yet. They refer to it as an endorsement. But there are 3 other certifications. The CPIM can be obtained at a fellow level for those of us that teach it a lot. And then, of course, there's the CSCP. I really want to spend the time talking about CSCP. But before I talk specifically to the eligibility and so forth, just a quick comment of why certification to begin with. It costs a bit of money to get your certification, no denying that. It's very valuable to you because it's going to return significant increased earning potential for you. APIC says that it could be as much as 20 to 25%. Certainly another reason why we might want to do certification is just to get the knowledge and to be able to go in more intelligently with our company and apply that knowledge. And then lastly, certifications open doors that might not otherwise be available to you. We see that in the form of job ads saying APIC certification required. So specifically, the CSCP that APIC offers has 3 module approaches. They're listed here. And then below the modules are many of the areas that extend into relative to each module. This is just a kind of a brief outline as to what you're kind of getting into relative to the CSCP. If we look at what it focuses on from a content point of view, it's really mastering cross-company functionality. And so that's not just cross-department functionality that we've focused on for the last several decades, but it's extending it now to cross-company functionality. And again, from the organization suppliers to the end customers. So it gets that end-to-end activity. It provides a clear understanding of what's going on relative to how you would integrate all of the operations in the entire supply chain. So I want to just focus quickly then, if that's what the CSCP focuses on, what are the duties of a supply chain manager out there today? Again, you'll see all kinds of different job descriptions with that title, but one that would effectively follow the CSCP professional logic is a person that would be responsible for managing the collaboration of all the activities with all of the trading partners that they're working with. It would have very little to do with managing the purchasing department. Purchasing would be part of the big picture, but the supply chain manager would be responsible for demand, inventory, and supply. So if you're interested as a person to go down this path, what are the benefits for you, the candidate? Well, it provides the necessary tools to help you manage a global supply chain. Again, a new field. Enables the implementation of best practices that are being developed. Get in on the early pioneer pace of these best practices. Help develop them. Most importantly, we're trying to improve the efficiencies of getting inventory to the right place much more rapidly and again, more efficiently. So what's going on with the examination? It's a one exam certification, 175 multiple choice questions. The APEX fail numbers are 265 to 299 and passing is 300 to 330. You do get a numerical score upon completion of the exam, and again, passing's over 300. Today, the exam costs $695. That's a new number. They had a January 1, 2016 increase, so know that that's the member price. Non-member price is up to $915 for the exam today. There are a couple of review options available to you through our chapter. We can sell you a self-study program that's called the APEX Learning System. And then there's my company has developed an online course option that I deliver through the chapter as well. Potential candidates for CSCP would have titles similar to what you see on this list. Again, supply chain manager being the ultimate possible position to work for or towards, with a pretty commanding salary that goes along with it. You see other titles here ranging from purchasing management all the way up through materials managers and project managers, etc. So if these are some titles that are in your company and or you possess, you're definitely a candidate for CSCP. I do want to comment. In fact, I'm actually going to go back in the slideshow for a quick second and add a comment. I'm going to go one more back, one too far. When we talk about the CSCP program, a couple of things that are different with the CSCP than is with the case with CPIM. The first is, whilst anybody can begin their CPIM, there are no prerequisites. You do not have to have a college degree, for example. You do not have to have some other thing satisfied. All you need to do is go pass 5 tests. But with the CSCP, there is an eligibility requirement. And while I don't have a slide, you can, and they're usually constantly updating it at APEX. So my suggestion is always go to the APEX website. That's apex.org, and look at the current eligibility requirements. Today, there are 3. If you have any one of the 3, you're eligible. So the first one is, do you hold a conferred bachelor's degree or equivalent? Second one is, do you have a certification, typically like the APIC CPIM or CFBIM or CIRM, CIRM, or SCORE-P, or maybe the ISM's CPM. So they're pretty liberal. As long as you have a certification, you've passed the eligibility. The third eligibility requirement is, do you have at least 3 years of related business supply chain type experience? So before you can sit for the single exam, and you want to have applied to APICS to make sure that you are eligible, and they'll return your application with a yes or no. Obviously, if it's a no, they'll tell you what you need to do to become eligible. There's a very, very important thing going on right now, and that is APICS has just overhauled a major change, if you will, major overhaul to the CSCP examination in 2016. Now, for those of you that may have already started your study and your preparation, they are going to allow the 2015 exam, last year's exam, to be offered up through September 10th of this year. After September 10th, the 2015 exam will no longer be available. And the other thing that is different about the CSCP program than CPIM is that there are limited test windows. Now, up until about a month ago, they were advertising 3 test windows. Yesterday, when I went online, I saw the addition of a 4th. So this year, 2016, they have 4 test windows. There's one that starts March 19th, upcoming, and lasts till May 7th. And then there's another one that starts June 4th and lasts to July 2nd. And then there's one in August through September and one in October through December. We talked about this. I mentioned that I have an online course. I've structured it along this way, where you have 16 subsets, 4 interactive classes prior to each interactive class. So an interactive class means we're together, we're synchronized at the same time, we're talking about this stuff together, instructor-led. So we have 4 pre-recorded lectures before each class, and you can see some of the subject matters that we use to structure that class with. It looks like I'm going to be starting another group in April-May timeframe. That concludes today's webinar. I'm going to look into the chat room to see if we have any questions, James. Looks kind of bare. So we'll open it up for questions. And again, we're very interested in subjects that you might like to hear more about in a lunch and learn approach.
If you guys look at the top of your screen in the menu bar, you'll see a little dialog bubble there. That's your chat box. Just click on that, and it'll give you a chat window.
Yep, it does require a little typing. While we're kind of waiting to see if there are any questions, I'm going to take this moment to make a real quick comment that says, congratulations to James. He's really worked hard at improving the look and the feel and the Tampa Bay APICS website. I think he's done it really does improve from times past. So again, James, nice job. For that matter, the chapters board is extremely busy this year trying to deliver to the members the best opportunity they can. So I'm pleased to be back working with them.
Well, Jerry, I don't see any questions. So thank you for serving on the board and coming back as our Vice President of Education. We really appreciate it. And thank you for putting this webinar together to share with our members and the supply chain community at large this information with regards to what supply chain management is. I'd like to also just once again invite everybody to our workshop that's on this Friday, the 19th. Just go to the apextampabay.org website, and you can get all the details. And with that, I see one comment from Jill Flansburgh.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Jill. Thank you for listening in. And if there are no more comments, one final thank you to Jerry, and we will sign off.
Thank you, James.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.